As many people have heard on many occasions, the most dangerous words in personal finance are alleged to be, "This time it's different." Far be it from me to be that iconoclastic as to challenge conventional wisdom, but there are certain circumstances that are real with what's going on in 2026 that truly are different. And as a result, many of the things that we know about investing remain true, but a few other variations might very much warrant our consideration. So here's what has not changed. You still have to build diversified portfolios, diversified within and throughout asset classes, where you get access to public products, public securities, stocks and bonds that are hopefully as diversified as possible and as cheap as possible through low cost index funds and funds and exchange traded funds, products of that nature. That has not changed. What has changed is that there are a number of other products that are also available that are particularly well suited to what's going on in the here and now that you might not have thought of in the past. The world has changed. I don't think that's particularly surprising to anyone anymore, given what's been going on in the past 16 or 18 months. So the first thing that you might want to think about is your portfolio positioned to take care of macro stability? Are you concerned about inflation being up and growth being down? Because growth is going to be a real challenge going forward as a result of demographics. We now have women that are only having about 1.25 children each, and the replacement rate is 2.1. That creates a systemic drag on the growth of the economy, and that is something that we have not seen in centuries in the Western world, not since the Black Plague, that we actually had a major hollowing out of our workforce. And that's going to have a major drag on your investing. Have you thought about that? And are you positioning your portfolio to take into account those very real considerations? One of the things that we also need to do now is we need to have more targeted public investment, things in investment in things like our military, but also infrastructure to be able to be a more resilient economy. That's something that all politicians of all stripes all around the world are talking about. It's going to be happening, and it's going to have an impact. It's going to have knock-on effects on how you invest. Have you been taking that into account when you do your investing? I would suggest you ought to. Climate change. Again, this is something that has never, ever been a consideration throughout all of our history. When you start talking about capital markets are presumed to be efficient, but the problem is climate is an externality, and greenhouse gases are the sort of things that are not properly accounted for in capital market theory. And as a result, we have to put a price on carbon so we can take it into account and change the way we invest as a result of that. Have you thought about that? Now, again, what I'm saying here is that things have changed. I'm not suggesting a radical shift. I'm suggesting that you give consideration to things that are different, that have never, ever been considerations before. So we need to be thoughtful and purposeful in the way we proceed with our climate strategy. We need to have both clean and conventional energy. Canada's working to have leadership in both markets, but it's the sort of thing that is different, that has never happened before. This time is different. And I think that the other thing that is probably different, at least in our lifetimes, perhaps really different in the post-World War II era, is that we're now back to every country for himself and herself in terms of global cooperation and needing to build economies that are resilient. I'm not saying that you have to do anything different, again, necessarily, but I am asking that you give consideration to how you proceed with your investing, because the world has changed and we need to do things differently as a result of those changes. All of this is to say, nothing that you've gotten used to is necessarily wrong, but a lot of the things that you've been thinking about in the way you build portfolios might require that you give it a second look to make sure that it's taking into account the world, because this time might quite literally be different. This has been Weekly Wealth Update, a Make Better Wealth Decisions podcast dedicated to explaining how current events impact your portfolio and the wealth decisions you make. Tune in for commentary on how the news of the week affects your portfolio and your thinking.